The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers and their Grizzly range. The next generation of Grizzly is here. Meet the Grizzly Ultimate, the most powerful AC Level 2 charger for home use. With a maximum current of 80 amps, that's 19.2 kilowatts. Your vehicle could be charged up to twice as fast as a standard Level 2 and up to 15 times faster than a Level 1. And of course, it's Wi-Fi connected, so you can take control of your home charging, view stats, set a charging schedule, take part in demand response programs, and control your charger remotely. And that joins the lineup alongside the original Grizzly Classic. The Grizzly Duo, designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a portable charging station. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. Those chargers can adjust the current from 16 amps up to 40 amps, that's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, the Grizzly Ranger IP67 rated, built in Canada, and with the highest quality materials. You can order yours right now. Go to unitedchargers.com, that's unitedchargers.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's Friday, February the 7th, 2025, and this is episode number 74. On today's show, we'll be talking about Ionna transitioning from public beta to full-scale national release with their CEO, NEVI, the federal charger funding program, getting halted, and Mercedes gains access to Tesla Superchargers, and of course, much, much more. I'm your host, Dominic Ionni, for this episode. Martin will be back with us hopefully next week. Joining us today is the eminent Mr. Tom Moloughney, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Autospec Studios, where he produces high voltage videos for a number of YouTube channels. And we are thrilled to be joined shortly, maybe about 30 minutes or so, I think, by Seth Cutler, CEO of Ionna, the relatively new and ambitious EV charging network. So, all right. So I guess we're going to kick it off with some news today. Last week, this time, we were kind of expecting like huge 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico from the incoming Trump administration to cause some huge changes and make waves in the auto industry. But those tariffs have been suspended for at least a month, so we can exhale over that. But yesterday, the administration made another move that will impact EV drivers potentially, and that's the freezing of NEVI funding. So NEVI stands for National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, and it was created to distribute funds from the federal government to the various states for installing EV charging infrastructure. And it was a fund in believe in the billions of dollars, like 3 to 5 billion in there, like a big pile of money. So it's been frozen. Apparently, it's important to note that this may not be a permanent freeze. A letter was sent out from the U.S. Department of Transport that says the new leadership of the Department of Transportation has decided to review policies underlying the implementation of the NEVI formula program. The formula program is like the formula they use to divvy up the money and distribute the money to the different states. So the letter also says, as a result of the rescission of the NEVI formula program guidance, the Federal Highway is it? No, that's not associated. What is it? FHWA is also immediately suspending administration. Right. Thank you. Federal Highway Administration is also immediately suspending the approval of all state electric vehicle infrastructure deployment plans for all fiscal years. Therefore, effective immediately, no new obligations may occur under the NEVI formula program until the updated final NEVI formula program guidance is issued and new state plans are submitted and approved. So there's probably a lot to unpack there, about $3.3 billion worth. But anyway, it looks like there are a bunch of sites around the country that are not going to open as were expected in the coming years. So let's maybe start with Tom. So what do you make of this? And what do you make of this? Just to start with.
Well, I know it's been challenged in 22 states or something, and there's been some sort of temporary freeze on that stay of the funding. It's a complicated topic because when we first heard this coming out, years ago that they were going to do this. My initial thought, honestly, goes back to the days when Ecotality got like the first funding back 15 years ago in California in the West, and it was kind of a disaster. People might be surprised if we who are electric vehicle enthusiasts or whatever say, maybe it wasn't a great idea to do it in the beginning. We all want infrastructure, but what's the right way to implement it? Where should the money come from? How should it be implemented? It kind of seemed like the idea of this was a great idea. We need infrastructure. So let's put a pool of money in a bucket and give it to states and let infrastructure get installed. But the devil's always in the details. So far, a lot of the programs it seems like a lot of the programs weren't administered very efficiently. It's taken very long for us to get any action on this, even though electric vehicle infrastructure does take a while to get moving. I mean, you take a look at Ionna, which we're going to have on later. In 1 year, the company just started. They already have sites up across the country. Like that's how you properly do infrastructure. So where was this money going? And I quite honestly don't know. I haven't done the research to the companies that have gotten the money that are installing chargers. Is it crap equipment? Is it a money grab where these companies are taking this, going to build EV charging infrastructure, and it was going to fail in a year and they weren't going to fix it? And it was just, whenever you get government involved with tons of money like that, there's always a lot of waste. So, as much as it pains me to as an electric vehicle enthusiast who wants and needs infrastructure, I have to look at this honestly and say, was that the right way to do it? And maybe it wasn't. That said, in my position, the way I feel now, the money that's been committed to companies, you can't take that back. You can't pull the check out from the companies that have been moving forward with plans to install charging. Some people have real estate already acquired. They signed leases. They've begun the programs. In my opinion, if you're going to do it, first of all, it has to be done legally. I'm not sure the way that this administration has done this is legal to just say, okay, that's it. I'm going to override what Congress approved 3 years ago with a swipe of a pen and freeze all your money. I don't know if that's legal, but I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not a scholar at very many things, to be honest with you, but I play one.
You're a scholar at pizza. That's important.
And well, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. So, all I'll say is, however it gets defunded, this program, because it's going to get defunded, that's no surprise. It won't be a surprise for me if the federal tax credit goes away too. That's probably going to happen. It's going to happen, but I want them to do it legally. I don't want a swipe of a pen that could be an illegal action to undo things. If we're going to freeze this, let's do it through the proper way through Congress, but don't stop the programs that have already been given money, because this is people's jobs. This is people's livelihoods that have applied, that have signed contracts, that have hired employees to install the stuff. Don't issue anything further, which I think, I don't even know if half of the money's been accounted for yet, but whatever I think is in the process and committed, the monies that has been committed to the states, that the states have signed contracts with, I think that should be able to continue to go forward. But if they want to stop it at that point, listen, elections have consequences.
So Kyle, you have a bit of a different take, I think, on this situation. No, not too different. Somewhat, maybe nuanced. I don't know. Okay, maybe tell us how you feel.
I generally agree with Tom on most points, which is I think we can all agree there was certainly, my view is there were companies that were being awarded that should not have been in the EV charging game. And I've always been pretty vocal about my wish to not have government involvement in public charging, and that none of this will work until you can make money without needing millions of dollars to set up a station. And, I personally think this is a pretty good thing. I agree with Tom that a lot of people have committed time and resources, and there's a lot of jobs that rely on this funding. Whether all of them are necessary or not is a totally valid question we should be asking. And I hope that, whatever was committed at least goes through in the sense where I think it was a reimbursement program for a lot of stuff. So there was a lot of people that spent money up front hoping to get reimbursed by this. And I don't think we should be like, from the government perspective, like, hey, we're giving you money, spend money, and then not fund them on the back end. But I totally think this should stop entirely. And I'm glad it is, personally.
Right. And so, I mean, we're all kind of different, little politically, and I'm, I think most people know that I'm leaning probably a little bit more left, but I kind of am in the same sort of boat with you guys. I don't think the way it was sort of set up was a super efficient way to distribute money across the different states, to leave it up on the different states, and not having a good federal control. I mean, good control over the quality of the input. The people making these decisions on where to put chargers. Do they have they driven EVs? Do they own? Are they EV owners? Are they, experts, whatever, in the field? That's kind of, I think, it would be helpful for a process like this. And yeah, just the way I see it coming out. It was good. To me, I was kind of like bound to be a little bit inefficient, and money is going to get wasted.
There's cases of this working properly. There's cases where reputable charging companies, Rivian,
right,
Tesla, Ionna, maybe, and some, I don't know, we can ask Seth when he comes on, got funding. And I think we're all collectively pretty confident that, like, okay, those stations probably went in areas that those companies privately would not have put charging stations. At least that should be the intention of the program. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. And I think we're all pretty confident that Tesla and Rivian and Electrify America and others, EVgo, to an extent, are capable of providing a reasonable, reliable charging experience for EV drivers. However, there was a lot of cases where you'd see fuel chain retailers, startup companies that have had a very poor track record at providing good EV charging services being awarded over some very reputable charging companies, where these companies are new, they don't have the experience to build out charging infrastructure. I even know of some cases of people using federal money or planning to use NEVI funding to build a charging station, but then use the ancillary services to provide grid power and not use it mostly to charge electric cars. And I'm like, why are you getting battery pack stuff? Why are you getting all these things to do bidirectionality for grid frequency control? And I'm like, I don't want my tax dollars going to you to make a lot of money, not focusing on charging, but focusing on ancillary services. So yeah, I think we can all agree there was some good. The intentions probably were in the right place, but it was very poorly run. And I think anyone in the industry would tell you that.
In my mind, I'm thinking, wasn't Tesla like the biggest kind of recipient of these grants so far, or maybe that's just wrong?
No, it could be true. Tesla did get a lot of NEVI funding, or at least was promised a lot of NEVI funding.
Right.
The thing is, we've all seen charging implemented poorly, and to Kyle's point about companies that maybe shouldn't be involved with it, that said, hey, for instance, maybe gasoline companies have gas stations saying, well, there's a ton of money out there, let's grab as much as we can, and we'll stick chargers in the ground in our on our properties, or on other properties, and they go out without really researching good equipment and buy poor equipment, and it's not working, and they don't spend the money. They only use the money that they got to install it. They don't keep it operating and have good uptime, and that only makes the whole electric vehicle public charging experience worse, because quite honestly, it'd be better not to have a charger in a location than to have a location where half the time it doesn't work. Because people, the most frustrating thing is when you're banking on a location, you're on a road trip or you're driving somewhere and you get there and it doesn't work. It'd be better off not even having that on your map and finding another location. And you almost say, I wish if the government was going to give a lot of money, I wish they could just give it to like 4 entities that we know would do well, but you can't do that, But I understand both sides of the argument. we want infrastructure, but we want the right infrastructure. And
True.
you know, I don't know how well it was being implemented. I'm not saying that it was run terribly. I don't have some of the experience that Kyle talked about knowing somebody installed something for grid services. I'm just speculating, but I know that there was probably going to be a lot of waste. A lot of it probably wasn't going to work really well. I'd much love to see companies like Tesla or Ionna or even EVgo and Electrify America, even though, you know, we've had some issues with some of those companies in the past, companies that know how to do this, that have proven that they can do it. They have reliable equipment, or the equipment's getting more reliable, rather than a disjointed number of hundreds of individual companies just putting chargers in random locations, not like a comprehensive, cohesive network like what Electrify America did and what Tesla did and what Ionna's planning now, like lighting up specific corridors, not just one here, one here, one here, one here, that all different networks, all different cards. You know, so maybe the fact that the money's getting pulled will be a good thing long term for the industry. I'm just speculating.
You know, the one topic that keeps coming up in the comments is the the 8 station story, where, you know, we spent how many billions of dollars and only 8 stations.
Right.
I don't think the audience is really hearing us complain about that, because I think we all know how long it does take to build out infrastructure. And, you know, getting just the power equipment, like, I would have loved to see more focus on how do we get transformers on the ground as fast as possible as part of this program. And I know there were other programs to help with stuff like that. And I'm not saying we are all experts in this area, but I don't think that was our main concern. I think we were more or less, I just want to see sustainable business models in charging. And that means, in my opinion, that you need to fund stations privately, and you need them to be profitable on their own. So like Tesla can sell cars because of the supercharger network. Now the network, probably as a large whole, is cash flow positive. That's awesome. I'd love to see more of that. Maybe even Rivian's approach could work in that way as well. And of course, there will always be differing opinions. There's a lot of political opinions involved in this as well, which I generally stay out of politics. I'm not well versed in politics, but I like the idea of, my tax dollars not going to funding shitty chargers.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah.
I think it's fair. Well, I don't want to spend much more time on this, because it's, we can't really do anything about it, and there's some some people calling out, and so it could get, the freeze could get frozen, or or the money that's been obligated, so that's money that's been taken out, and it's kind of been assigned to these people, but they haven't received it yet, but it's obligated to them. I think it might be good to see that dispersed, but like I'm not like an expert in this area at all as well. I haven't really really dug deep into NEVI, because I didn't think it was going to have a big impact overall compared to what Electrify America and the Tesla Supercharger network and Ionna, what they're doing. To me, this feels like just kind of fill in some holes here, and for some politicians, make their constituents happy to have some infrastructure in places the other places might miss. And it's not super efficient, but it's a help. It would be a help for some people, at least. I don't know, but like
one thing for sure, Dom, this is going to get dragged on for months. This isn't over.
Yeah.
This isn't done.
Right.
This is going to go back and forth to the courts. Individual states are going to sue. Companies are going to. I mean, this isn't like, Trump just shut down NEVI funding. Not by a long shot. There's going to be money dispersed. That some of the programs that they're trying to stop now won't get stopped. They'll win. They'll go on, but for sure, future, whatever hasn't been committed to the states is gone, for sure. What has been committed, that's kind of in flux now. I think eventually many of the companies and the states will win and get what was committed to them, but it's going to drag it out for months and months and months in the courts. And some companies might just give up. Some companies might just say, you know what, I can't wait 18 months to decide if this project that I have a lease on this land is going to go through with. So some of it will go through, some of it will be killed. All future dollars for whatever wasn't committed yet will certainly not go through. And who knows? Like we said, it could be a blessing in disguise. In the end, the stronger private companies might give us a better infrastructure, a better cohesive network, and we might end up with better infrastructure than what we would have if this all got deployed. More isn't always better.
True. All right.
One final thought on this charging topic.
Sure.
We have pretty good infrastructure right now. Now that Tesla's opened up. So, to other automakers like Mercedes now has access. We'll talk about that. Others, Ionna's coming. A lot of that is privately funded. Like infrastructure, it's not terrible. You can easily drive across the country and to most places without thinking about it. The problem comes with long-term maintenance now. And if we are going to see a large influx of EVs, there's certainly urban issues in cities and densely populated areas that have a problem with getting more chargers to service densely urban areas. However, if you have home charging, which a lot of our audience does, I know it's not everyone, and it's an increasingly smaller number of EV drivers that have home charging, is my understanding. But also, you could just drive anywhere at the moment. I don't even think about it in most long-range electric cars. So it's not like things are terrible here.
True. Yeah, no, things have really, really improved over the last several years, as we witnessed with the out of spec cross country races. Right. So, and I would just like to point out, thank you all in the comments. You have a lot of great comments. We haven't really read them out, but there's a really bunch of great thoughts in here.
That comment on the 97% uptime, there were so many loopholes around the 97% uptime that companies could fib and say it was like a grid connection issue. They could say it was a something else issue. And there was basically every company, and we've even seen and done some podcasts on it, where they probably weren't going to report that accurately, or at least there were ways where they couldn't. Plus, how do you quantify uptime? Do you say that the station is available or on the port level? I believe NEVI was on the port level, but regardless, it's not as black and white as it looks. There's so much nuance in the NEVI, and to be honest, I don't think any of us are completely familiar with all the details. There are very few people who totally understand NEVI out there.
Right. Liv and Pat from Malky Vlogger in the comments, and they've been making saying a few things, so they're saying the process was slow because they took input developing the standard, and then let each state handle the bidding process. Local control and states' rights. Yeah, I mean that's kind of was the thought process going into it. I'm not sure if that was the most. In some respects, it is a great idea, the way to do it. Because local people should know. Where the local charger should be, but we don't know, if the people making those decisions were necessarily, EV owners or, people who have that knowledge, But anyway, I digress. It'll work itself out. We'll hear about it more in the future. We have just not too long before Seth joins us, so I wanted to mention real quick that speaking of charging, and Kyle kind of alluded to this a moment ago, Mercedes-Benz EVs now have access to the Tesla Supercharger stations. So some good news. I think that's some great news today, because if you wanted to drive like a $130,000, $150,000, $1,000 car, but can only afford a $50,000 or $60,000 car, this is good news for you, because you can find great deals on Mercedes EQSs or whatever. Man, I was looking at the deals. After I saw this news, I went to look at what was out there. Yeah, $50,000 can get you a very, very nice Mercedes EQS. You may not like the looks of it from the outside, but from the inside they look great, and they're just great driving cars and a great EV. So anyway, so owners will need a NACS to CCS adapter, which will be available for sale at dealerships for $185. And of course, if you don't want to wait on that, what was that? We have Tom, your recommendations for adapters.
So it appears that Mercedes is using an electron adapter anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So look, the two that I always tell people to buy if they want to buy is Electron and the A to Z. They're both high quality, really well built adapters. So either one. You can get one. You can get them a few bucks cheaper than going through Mercedes. If you buy direct, the companies usually have coupon codes. I always have a state of charge coupon code with A to Z, and Electron kind of like puts it on and off and on and off. I don't even have control over that. So, if you catch it right, you can get 10% off the Electron with state of charge. And so you can always get it with the A to Z. But those two adapters are rock solid. I know Mercedes specifically said only use our adapter. And there's a lot of people that don't want to violate whatever the OEM tells them. I understand that. I'm not going to tell you to buy what you want, but if you value myself and a lot of other people online, Brendan Flash knows about as much about DC fast charging as anybody, and he uses the A to Z adapter all the time. He says it's the best adapter on the market. So, you decide what you want to use, but just remember, these are dumb pass-through adapters. The car has no idea what adapter is being used. The charger has no idea what adapter is being used. If by some freak chance something happened and you're worried about your warranty, nobody would be able to prove that you used a non-approved adapter unless you told them that you did, or unless it fused itself to the car and you couldn't get it off, I guess, in that situation. But so it's good move. Mercedes, another company, they announced this in January, that in early February they were going to get access, and it was real early February.
Right. So they say in their little on their page here about this about charging at Tesla Superchargers. Right. Sorry, I was reading the comment. They say you go to the Mercedes-Benz app. Mercedes Me Charge toggle switch to activated next. So you go through the Mercedes-Benz. Was it Mercedes Me app, and you can do it through there. And that will allow you to locate and route to supercharger stations. Right, and then at the station you can start your charging session through the app. But you can also do this with They can also do this with the Tesla app as well. They don't need to go through the Mercedes Me app. Is that right, Kyle?
Right, you should be able to go through the Tesla app as well. And
Right.
what's the story on plug-in charge? There was a lot of confusion around the Mercedes getting access thing. My buddy Zach, I think his dad has an EQS, and he was posting on Twitter about having to go to a dealer for a software update. Then turns out they didn't. They just needed to get a sticker for a recall or something to put on the charge port door. There was something around it. Plus, no free adapters, I think, is kind of lame considering that people really spent a lot of money on these cars. And maybe I think it would be at least reasonable to do free adapter for the original owner on the car, because they're the ones who took the big hits on the depreciation, unless they leased it. A lot of people did do good leases on them. But I just feel like that's kind of lame from Mercedes to not give out a free adapter compared to every other company. Now, Tom has some differing opinions on that. He says, okay, you're going to hold up the adapter rollout to people who don't need the adapter. And I totally agree with that. So maybe, in his mind, Tom was like, just charge $25 for it or something. I think that's a great idea, but just to charge basically full price for the adapter is, I just think, stiffing their customers a little bit. It's such a Mercedes move. Just drives me crazy. And I say that as a Mercedes owner, but it's just annoying. So, I think from my perspective, everything here sounds good. Mercedes works perfectly with the Supercharger network because they're low voltage cars. So they can just sit at 500 amps, which is what the Supercharger should give them. And very excited to see the integration with route planning. The one thing Mercedes does better than almost any other company, other than Tesla and to an extent Rivian and to an extent Porsche, is fantastic route planning. They do a great job of routing you from charger to charger. And I can't wait to see the real-time station interface inside MBUX. I can't wait to see the logic behind when it chooses to bring you to an EA station, an EVgo, or an Ionna, or a Mercedes charging network station. Let's not forget Mercedes is spending, I don't even remember, over $1 billion on their own charging infrastructure with 400 kilowatt charging, dedicated power. Really nice. Very excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds good. And speaking of charging, so congratulations to all your Mercedes owners out there. You have a ton more charging opportunities available to you now. So without further ado, let's welcome Seth Cutler to the screen. Good morning, Seth. How you doing?
Morning, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
All right. You sound okay. You sound good. So Great to see you, and thanks for coming on the show. Last time we were all kind of in the same place was for the big open house out of spec stress test of your rechargery in Apex, North Carolina. So it's cool to be together again to talk about some big Ionna news. The company is transitioning from beta release to a full-blown, full-scale national release. So that sounds like a pretty big deal. And it must have been because not only did Tom go down to the Apex rechargery and the customer experience lab, I guess in nearby Durham, is that where you are right now?
Yeah. I'm at the customer experience lab right here. We actually cut the ribbon. So on Tuesday, it was actually a pretty cool event because there were 10 ribbons we cut, one for each OEM, one for Ionna at Apex, and then we cut a 10th ribbon at our headquarters that we just opened the lab at, which is where I'm at right now.
So you had representatives from the 8 automakers that have partnered to create the company. And for those keeping score at home, that's BMW, General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, Stellantis, and Toyota. So I guess let's start by maybe telling us what this full-scale national release means to all the EV drivers out there anxious for new charging locations and options.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Dominic. Right, so we started operations just a year ago, a little over 12 months ago, February 1st when I started, and we scaled to dozens of employees. So last year, as I tell people, it was really two things. One, go build a company because we're a separate legal entity from the OEM. So imagine building and standing up a whole organization. And the second one was launching Ionna as a product, right? So we got first sites live last year, lots of testing. I appreciate all the support. Kyle and his team did a great job supporting us on the soft launch event at the end of last year. And so now we've got a lot of data, not just from test sessions ourselves, but from real customers in the real field. And we've been working diligently over the last several months. So as we announced, over 100 sites are contracted. That really sets us up for this first initial part of the rollout of 1,000 charging bays, roughly 100 sites this year, and then scaling pretty significantly into 2026 and beyond to achieve that 30,000 charging bays by end of 2030.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a soft ramp. So was it 1,000? How many locations? 1,000 live charging bays by the end of this year.
Yep. So 1,000 charging bays, approximately, a little over some number over 100 sites this year is our target to kickstart the network. Which, look, honestly, if we're talking a year from now, we have well over 100 sites. I think that's pretty incredible for 2 years into operation. But we know what's in front of us. This isn't easy. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We're learning. We're getting better. But I'll tell you what, the team that we've assembled is pretty incredible. I'm incredibly proud of the team that we have and what they're doing every day to make things right from a charging perspective.
So this week you opened rechargeries, and so for people who don't know, they're charging locations or hubs that we refer to them as rechargeries, which is it's growing on me. It's an interesting name. It's a brand new name kind of invented for this, so it's good. So you opened up new rechargeries in Houston, Texas, Abilene, Kansas, and Wilcox, Arizona, and you have the one in Apex. What other ones? So how many do you have actually open and ready to go right now altogether?
Yeah, so we have 6 sites total. The Wilcox announcement was we just broke ground on Wilcox. So we have 6 sites total. We've got 7 more in construction right now. More permits actually just started flowing in this week. So, we're well on our way for our goals for this year. But yeah, 6 are live. And the Houston one, I'll talk about that in just a little bit. It's actually a really interesting site. We actually bought that site in Houston, and it's right adjacent to a Starbucks, right? So I think, we could talk more about kind of what we're doing on our product side and how we're approaching the market differently. But what's unique about it is because we were able to buy the land and build a ground up build, what that lends itself to when you think about the rechargeries is 24/7 access to bathrooms, outdoor seating, a full canopy overhead, vending machines, and then you have additional amenities nearby, right? And that's really, it's different than what you see in the market, but it lends itself to a different business model in terms of how we monetize the platform. And then also in terms of how we think about the customer experience and driving a different result to consumers.
Abid Doi asks, why is Toyota in on Ionna? There's a little bit of a joke, but Toyota is actually, it's not really, we're not going to probably talk about it. They did finish their a huge many billion dollar battery plant in the US this past week. So they have an EV plan strategy. Maybe it's a little slower than some of the others, but they'll get there. Sorry to interject that, but yeah. So
yeah.
Sorry, Seth. Let me grab you. Let me get a quick question in. We were just talking about the NEVI funding, right before here. And I asked all, I don't know if you've seen the video that I put out about my visit down there, but I asked all the automakers. I didn't get Kia in though. We ran out of time, and I feel bad about that. But I asked representatives from all the automakers. One of the questions, four questions. It was interesting to hear all their answers too. But one of the questions was, we expect the government. This was before that the news hit yesterday or today. We expect the government to cut the NEVI funding out, and is that going to change Ionna's plans? And I got a variety of answers from the different automakers, most of which said, nope, we're going to forge through. A few were kind of, well, we're going to feel the market and see what happens. You're the CEO. If this money just dries up tomorrow, not another penny gets dispersed, they pull back whatever was out there. Number one, were you guys getting NEVI funding? And number two, will that affect your plans moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are not counting on NEVI funding at all. I think there's been some articles about a site that we actually won NEVI funding in Colorado, so it's out there on the internet. That was a little bit of an experiment that the team ran to see what that would look like and how that would fit in with our plans for deployment, just to test the market a little bit for us in terms of how fast we're moving. But NEVI right now is not baked in at all in terms of our plans for scale. So we are committed to the 30,000 charging bays in 2030, and I think the important part of this, Tom, to your point, is and we've talked about this before, is there is a need for charging today, right? If no more EVs were sold in the year 2025 and beyond, which we all know is not going to happen, there is an absolute need right now. There's queuing at locations, there's charging deserts, there's a real charging anxiety, things that don't work right. So we know that what we're doing today will solve today's problem, and we also know that EV adoption is going to happen. Now, I think there's probably a good question of, does that adoption curve shift right at all during some of these policy changes? We will see, but we know that there's a need right now, and we know there's going to be a need in the future, and we're watching that. But we're committed to our goals.
Okay.
Yes, I just want to say real quick, for those listening, we're actually showing on the screen Tom's video from that day, and he's gone up and talked to people from all the different companies there who are standing in front of, I guess, probably the vehicles they'd like to highlight, which is kind of cool. So if you have a chance, if you haven't seen that yet, I encourage you to go check out that on State of Charge. So Kyle, got some questions?
Well, yeah, first of all, I think we all need to commend Ionna on that insane launch speed. Like Seth mentioned, 12 months ago, that was not a thing. And now here we are, not only with the first site, but multiple sites in the ground, live, dispensing power today, and plenty to come. So we've seen other networks get spun up fast, but we've seen them get spun up fast, typically under punishment by the government. This is really exciting because it's done really to provide a great customer service. So in my opinion, other than Tesla, it's the first network that of course is open to all EVs, that is really there to provide a good customer experience to everyone. That's the goal. And after talking to Seth and even more importantly, his entire team, that is the goal of everyone there. So I'm super excited about the entire network, and it's cool that we were able to do the soft launch and loved that. The questions I have about the Ionna network it's a weird one, because it sounds exciting that we are putting in 400 kilowatt charging everywhere, and that's awesome, and we all want super fast charging. But I just came back from China, and I was driving cars that charged at 500, 550 kilowatt, 600 kilowatts. So I want to know when Seth is going to actually put in some big boy charging hardware and none of this puny 400 kilowatt stuff.
It's funny, right? Because it's been fascinating to watch the market, as you guys know, right? You think about 14 years ago, and Tom, you always talk about the first charger you installed at your restaurant, right? And I don't even know if that was 50 kilowatts or 25 kilowatts, but to watch the market progress to where it is today, it's pretty amazing. And so today we're installing 400 kilowatts, and we are watching this market. We have a minimum from a power standpoint, but there's no maximum. And so we're definitely, this is part of the collaboration with the OEMs, is that we're not just testing cars and seeing cars when they hit the road. We are intersecting our development timeline with the OEM's development timeline. So as they start looking at different battery architectures, different power curves, different charging curves, we'll know that sooner, and we'll be planning for that in the future. So, I think, as you all know, our style is very much when it's real, we talk about it, but there's definitely an aspect of there are things that will change in the future that we're going to address as the market meets us there.
The next thing I think, the more realistic topic here is I saw because I'm a huge fan of Walter, the network architects channel, and I think he's doing a great job of covering the charging infrastructure rollout across the country. I saw that you guys are already enabling or have enabled or about to enable plug-in charge with certain automakers. What I think our audience would like to know is so many of them do drive electric cars from the brands that are partnered with Ionna. But what is the experience? How does it differ from a partner brand's vehicle versus one that is, not associated with Ionna in any way? Is the pricing different? Is the activation method different? How does that look?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now we are fully capable of plug and charge, and we're working with the OEMs, our investors and partners to go turn that on. Today we're live with Mercedes and BMW, and I think that we've made that announcement before, and we're working with the rest of them to turn it on this year. Not to say too much, but look, at the end of the day, this network is built for all makes and models of cars, right? So we have lots of Teslas that show up to our chargers today. We've got 40% NACS committed at a minimum, and we're going to make those adjustments as more manufacturers move to NACS and we see the change in market to maybe more NACS. And so my point of that is we're willing to work with anybody who wants to work with us when it comes to plug and charge and activation methods, because we really want to go solve charging in this market. Our mission is to really open up the roads, the North American roads, to EVs and electrification of transportation. So it doesn't matter who the manufacturer is. Now, from an integration standpoint, it will be much deeper and tighter with our partners, but we're working with all manufacturers out there to make sure that charging works.
Cool. And the very last question that I'm seeing pop up in the comments as well, maybe you can help us understand the sort of the rollout and the pricing strategy of the network. So you started with our event, very cheap. Wish we could have kept it that way. It was awesome. And then, you went to some more realistic pricing. I don't think I actually know what the pricing is post-launch. I know my colleague Isaiah attended the grand opening with you guys a couple days ago, and I believe his video goes live on our channels in a few hours. I hope he covered it, but I'd love to hear from you the thought process behind the pricing model. Will it be station specific? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So pricing is definitely going to be site specific based upon the market conditions, right? There's obviously different electricity prices, et cetera. We're still, again, there's a lot of learning going on, and we're still really trying to understand the market from the perspective of what is the right price point to support consumers in their way, and what's competitive in the marketplace. So there'll be more work that we do in the future as we think about pricing. We're going to start moving into dynamic pricing as well, time of day pricing. These are things that we haven't yet turned on. Our number one goal is speed to deployment and quality. And anything that affects quality, we will not do. And then anything that's going to slow us down from a deployment standpoint, we're going to work around. So I think you'll see more on the pricing side as we move through the year and continue to work with consumers. And I think, one of the things I'll point out too on the pricing side, I think some of you may notice, right? We did a kind of what we call it, a doorbuster deal for 3 days as we rolled out new firmware halfway through our beta launch to drive in traffic, and it worked. And we learned a lot. So I think you'll see more of that as well as we go through the year of really working with the community to learn from them and to make sure that we're challenging ourselves to ensure that we're delivering the right quality product.
Amazing.
Seth, I have 2 questions. Oh, sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thanks, and I was going to throw it back to you, Tom.
So 2 questions, one of which I've asked you before. So pull-through stations. We need pull-through stations. We need as many as you can possibly give us out there. I want you to talk a little bit about that. But then secondly, we had some comments when we were earlier talking about the NEVI funding. And one of the things that Lori Allen brought up was that part of the NEVI funding was that underserved communities would get chargers, or maybe chargers at private locations that maybe private companies didn't want to go into because maybe there wasn't a very high uptake of EVs in that area. Have you guys given thought to that underserved communities? I know it's just the beginning now, and you're certainly that's not going to be the first locations you go to. But is there a roadmap to light up some of the underserved communities? But let's first talk about pull-through stations because we need them.
No, it's a great point on pull-through, right? And you look at the different cars that are coming to market or on the market today, particularly from our partners, right? These are big vehicles. These are vehicles that are towing things. So totally agree with you. And this is something that's definitely a focus. Our Garner, North Carolina location will be pull-through spots. Wherever we can fit it, we will. As you know, there's sometimes challenge in terms of space. But also this is why we're going about the market differently. Where if we go buy an acre of land, which we've done in different places, we can do things that others can if they're in the back of a parking lot or just doing parking stalls. So, I think this is all part of our strategy of how do we think differently about this market, differently about the business model, and differently about the customer experience. So they're coming. I don't have exact numbers for you right now. We won't share that today, but you have our commitment that this is top of mind as we design these sites to make sure we're addressing it. I think on the underserved communities and just in general, when we think about network planning, network coverage, it is still the early days. We've announced that we've acquired more than 100 sites. We're talking about thousands of sites by the end of 2030. So we got a steep hill to go climb, and when we know it, and we've developed a network modeling tool in terms of looking at what we call suitability scoring to understand where do we think if we install a charger it will drive utilization. So we're not just trying to put a dot on the map and say, okay, check a box, we got chargers. We're really looking into all types of different data sources and statistics and trying to model out potential utilization. I think that'll lend itself to making sure that we're putting it in not just where today is, but where tomorrow is, right? And I think as we move from early adopters to really mainstream, I think it lends itself to different parts of cities and parts of the country that really have charging deserts today that we will go serve to unlock this market. Because again, we really want to help drive adoption of EVs. If we install these chargers and we don't unlock adoption, then we failed.
There were a lot of comments asking about where, if you have a list of the 100 locations coming this year, or will you make something like that available? You do have on the Ionna site, as I was just kind of demonstrating, the sites that are up right now, and also the ones that are coming very soon. But is there any resource for people to get an idea of where they'll be in like 12 months?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there is a list because we know what sites we've contracted and
Right.
we got, but we're not ready to share that yet. I think.
Sure.
Again, our style has very much been, hey, when we've got a permit and we're ready to go shovels in ground, we start to share things. But there's definitely 100 plus sites. And I think it's kind of cool to watch because as to your point, Kyle, about Walter and others, there are folks that have found our permits, they found our plan set. So I think people are starting to get an idea of where things are coming. But what I'll tell you is our plan is to have the skeletal structure of the Ionna network built this year. So when we talk about 100 sites or 100 plus sites and over 1,000 charging bays, it'll look like the beginnings of a network, what I call a skeletal structure. And then 2026 and beyond really becomes how do you go build the muscles, the tissue, the organs, and the skin around this to develop this Ionna network organism, as we call it internally. So it's coming quick.
Maki Vlog, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So Maki Vlog asks, can other manufacturers still join this joint venture?
Hey, we're open to everybody, right? So again, at the end of the day, we want to make charging work. We want to really change the charging experience in this country and in Canada as well, as we look to expand there in the future.
All right. Sorry, Tom.
Well, I was going to talk about Canada. I got a lot of questions on my video. I don't know if you read some of the comments. A lot of people said, Tom, can you please ask them, give us a rough time frame on when they're going to come in Canada? Can you say, within 2025 you might have sites open, or is it further out than that?
I think it's going to be further out than that, but hopefully not that much further. I think we really want to make sure that, obviously the U.S. is a big country. There's a lot to learn still, and a lot to get right. So what we want to make sure is we don't bite off more than we can chew in these early days, right? So for us, it's about quality and speed of deployment and customer experience. And so as we get that right, which I feel like we're on the cusp of really starting to turn this machine on and at scale, then we can start to look to expand into Canada. So it is front and center. It's part of our commitment with our investors and our partners to do that. So it's coming. We're just not ready to start talking about that right now.
Someone's asking, where is the Ionna app? Is there an app?
There's no Ionna app today. So I think for those that have, three of you have visited the Apex site, right? So we've got an app to go unlock the bathrooms and access to our driver lounge right now. We really wanted to make sure at launch that we had everything integrated with the OEMs. And so that's why you see, most of the OEM apps today work on our network. We've got plug and charge enabled, more plug and charge coming. But there's stuff coming this year that is different than what we've announced yet. So I'll tell everybody, stay tuned. There's more coming.
So Seth, you just had your big grand opening. I mean, there was sort of like a 3-phase launch, if you will. Yep. And so now you're officially open for business. Ionna's ripping, you're doing your thing. Maybe you can talk to us just a little bit, because I'm also just curious what you guys learned from soft launch when we did our event to the grand opening, what may have been confirmed, what isn't working, what is working, what have you guys learned over the last few months?
Yeah, we've learned a lot, right? And I think, Colin, and I have talked about this before. Like, we're not perfect, right, by any stretch. But what matters is how fast you recover and improve. So, a couple things I'll point out. One is halfway through beta, so basically middle of January, we launched new firmware. We found some stuff that, quite honestly, we didn't see in testing, or we thought it wasn't as big of a deal, and we saw larger percentages in terms of, I'll give you an example, authorization timeouts, right? So if somebody plugged their car in first and then went to use the credit card reader, the timeout was too short of a window, and we saw some people have authorization failures. They have to plug back in. Well, that's just not acceptable. So we've opened that window up in this latest firmware, and we've seen that come down drastically. And I think it's up to like a 3-minute or 2-minute authorization timeout now, which helps quite a bit. And so these are the things that we're constantly looking and evaluating, is that customer experience, because it's not just as a software work, but it's also how does the customers interact with the equipment, and how do we make sure that we improve signage, et cetera. I'll give you another example, which is important for your listeners and for the community, is some older model Teslas, as you know, don't work over PLC. They work on CAN, right? And so we still have some older model Tesla showing up to sites that they can't charge, and we're still in education mode to explain that. So we've updated PlugShare with some notifications. We put stickers and some signage on the chargers now to educate. So quite honestly, we didn't think that was going to be a problem. We didn't think we were going to have as many Teslas showing up. We are, and so now we gotta make sure that we're educating folks so they don't show up counting on us, and we just can't charge those vehicles right now.
Do you think there's any way where you could detect that the car is, and basically just simulate like a CAN signal, like fool it into communicating over CHAdeMO essentially?
It's a good question. I mean, I think this is some of the conversation we've been having in some of the back office here of like, hey, is there a way to go help solve that part of the market? I don't, we'll see what we can go do with the stuff we can do. It's definitely a gap right now in terms of those vehicles just don't have the ability, whether it's Ionna or anybody else that have NACS and isn't Supercharger, they just can't charge. And so, yeah, it's a great question of how do we go help potentially solve that with Tesla and the community. And so we're continually trying to solve that. Right now, we're doing it with making people aware, because the worst thing is for someone to show up to a site and they just can't charge. It's just impossible from a compatibility standpoint, and then they're disappointed. So that's the first thing we're trying to solve right now.
Mark Norman just drops a few bucks to say in the comments, speaking of underserved areas, it'd make more sense to provide a moderately sized, secure parking lot with L2 charging for people without home charging. It's true. Level 2 charging is a big part of the, but how you, the puzzle, I guess, a part of the overall picture. We do need, some level 2 charging in urban centers, especially, I feel like. Where people can park their cars generally. Another bit of the news around your opening here involves the Garner, North Carolina location getting some high-tech automatic checkout through a collaboration with Amazon. And so maybe tell us a little bit about that and how it works.
Yeah, so let me touch on, I think the important piece here, right, is, when we first launched Apex, I think we got comments of folks of like, hey, is that the only one they're going to do? How's that going to work? And I think it's important for everyone to hear, like, as I tell, the team and everything else, is Apex was not a one and done, right? And so the Garner one, we have another site in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, that's currently under construction that'll have a driver lounge and a really interesting experience. We have other sites that we're not ready to talk about that are in permitting that'll have some unique experiences across the country. And so, I think the thing is that we're really trying to make sure that what you see at Apex is something that we can scale. And they're not flagship sites, right? That's the other thing too. These are sites that really are going to become part of the portfolio. Anyway, I just want to make sure everyone understands that point. I think it's important. In terms of Garner, I think we're trying something different there in collaboration with Amazon, rolling this technology out. And what I would say is, let's all come down end of March, early April, and we'll check it out and talk more about it when it's live. But that site is fully under construction and on track to deliver something really unique, I think, in the marketplace.
So from what I understand from the press release, it just automatically, you just take your things, whatever you want to, purchase, and you just take them and go, and it kind of tracks you and bills you automatically as you go through the store.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, the Just Walk Out technology allows someone to authenticate with a credit card or a mobile app, and once they're inside of that, they're able to take what they want and leave that part of the premise. It's inside of the building, so there'll also be a driver lounge inside of there, access to bathrooms, et cetera, 24/7. And so, yeah, I think you'll see some really interesting things. And again, this is for us is very foundational, right? So when you think of like Apex or Garner or these other locations, we're deploying technology in concert with the physical layout of these locations. But that's just the beginning, right? And so I think, if you were to come back to Apex a year from now, physically it might not look different, but the digital experience might, right? And so for us, this is very much about quality of charging, speed of deployment, and then building a platform that we can start to build on top of, and really think about the entire driver experience from what we call grid all the way to steering wheel, right? So not just the chargers, not just the facility, but also the vehicles and the consumer's experience overall.
Maki Vlog asks, are you monitoring charge speeds per car per session? For example, will you see a problem if cars aren't charging as fast as they should?
Yeah, so we built out a whole network operating center. I think this is important too. Because Tom, I did watch your video. I had a red eye coming back, so I had a lot of time in the airport the other night, and so I watched a lot of these videos. And I saw a lot of things of what's going to make Ionna different. How are they going to actually deliver on quality? And so that question, right? So we built out a full network operating center already. We've got a tier 2 team. We've got a tier 1 call center team. We have a field service team. I'm personally watching the logs on charging stations, right? So we're in what we call this hypercare phase for Q1, where we have essentially all hands on deck. Everybody from me on down into the organization is looking at how is charging performing, what are the comments we're getting on plug share. So we're trying to proactively identify things in addition to things that we have alarms set off for, or that will set off for us to go identify. So absolutely, this is our commitment. Is what we want to make sure is that when I come back on this podcast a year from now, 6 months from now, we're not talking about quality because it works, right? And if we're not, then we've got a problem. We have to get quality right, and then we have to go talk about how do we elevate the entire charging experience.
This sounds great. Walk, then run.
Yeah.
Kyle and I will be out there checking your stations, and you can bet when we come across one that says out of service, we're going to have our cell phone. Look at this, Ionna out of service. So keep them up for us, Seth. That's really important. And as you said in my video, I talked about this, and I talked to the representatives from the companies and literally said it's driving people from EVs when they go to sites that are non-functioning. And that plays into what we talked about with the NEVI funding earlier. A bad site that doesn't have good uptime is worse than no site at all. It damages the industry. It makes people not want to drive EVs. So we're counting on you to be the differentiator, to be the network. Well, Tesla's already done it, but I put Tesla in another bucket from everybody else. They just nailed it from day one. They understood nobody's going to buy their cars if charging isn't seamless and easy and always works. Now, for the first time, and Kyle alluded this to before, we've got a massive amount of automakers with a ton of money whose goal is to make their customers happy. That's what Tesla did. That's what Tesla realized years ago. Electrify America, EVgo were both formed out of punitive actions. Both companies were forced to do what they wanted to do. Now, I'm not saying the people that work for those companies didn't try really hard and weren't good people that were trying to make it work, but the companies were born out of court orders forcing them to do that. And you guys now are different. You're followed the Tesla model where you said, hey, people aren't going to buy our cars unless we make charging good. So I think that gives me the confidence that you're going to be different. And I think the three of us here and a lot of people in the comment stream are really, besides rooting for you, hoping that this is better and that you do a better job, because the industry can't sustain another failure. We can't be here 2 years from now with Kyle, having 6 videos out there saying it's 5 below zero and 10 Ionna sites are down. Nobody, look at the people are queuing up. We can't charge our cars. You've got to make this work. So, no pressure, but
no pressure.
What we say, I'll tell you what we say at Ionna is no stress, high pressure, right? So, stress leads to bad decisions and bad behavior, but high pressure leads to a high performing team. So everything you're saying, Tom, totally resonates. And I think, this team is ready to go do it. Again, are we going to stub our toes? Yeah. But I think this is why what we've done is we've got our own field service team. We've set up what we call these forward operating bases where we actually have, Airbnb set up. We've got people, nearby these sites. We've got parts on hand. We've got our own service truck. So there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes to make this machine work. And then on top of that, the organization that we've built, the people we've hired are just built, they're bought into the mission, right? They want to go solve this. They're bought into getting sites live. There's so much energy into the HQ, and I invite you guys down here, whenever you guys want. We can even do a podcast down here. to meet some of the team and what the folks here are working on, because for us, and if you look at the branding, right, for us, this wasn't just about dots on a map. It really was providing an overall experience, because I think, to your exact point, in order to get folks to want to adopt EVs, people don't want to talk about, is charging going to work? What they want to talk about is, I want to be able to experience that part of the ecosystem of charging. I want to be able to go to that location and be part of that experience. And so that's why we really focus on the branding. We focus a lot about the experience early on, because we want to help force a paradigm shift in this market and drive adoption. Now, to your guys' point, if it doesn't work, it's all for nothing. But that's why we're investing heavily in that part of the business right now.
And you got to tell me how the food and beverage contracts work, because your site's in New Jersey. I want to have those food and beverage contracts. I want to do pizza in all the New Jersey sites.
All right, we'll talk offline. We got some sites in Jersey right now in permitting. I'll give you a shout.
All right, I think that's about it. I think Seth committed to half an hour. We got to let him go, Dom.
Oh yeah. So thanks for joining us, Seth. I really appreciate your time. I don't know if there's anything you want to say before you leave, but
no, I just appreciate your guys' time as well and all the support. I know we have to go deliver. For us, it's not about talking the talk; it's about walking the walk. And I think you guys see that in our messaging and our announcements. I don't want to go out there and make a big splash about something that's never going to happen. So we're fully committed. I appreciate the collaboration here. And what I would tell you too, just to end on this part, is challenge us, right? Work with us. We want to get feedback from the community, from the drivers. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to get things wrong. Labels going to be wrong. The flows going to be wrong. We're going to get better at it. But I think if we can collaborate with the EV community, with consumers that are in cars today or looking at cars, that's what's going to make this network better, is a network built for consumers by consumers. Everybody in this company, drives an EV. We're a 2 EV household. I've done road trips in my wife's Tesla, in my BMW i4 across the country. And so we know what works, we know what doesn't work, and we got to go fix this together.
Right on. Sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. It was great seeing you guys today. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for coming on, Seth.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, that was great.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Seth is great.
Yeah.
And it's not just Seth, of course. It's maybe in the future we can even have some of his colleagues on. But when we did our soft launch, Tom, you were there, Dom, you were there. They had so many people out from all levels of the company. Everyone was passionate, and that's to me the most important quality about working with a company or being excited about a company, is like, are these people just showing up for a paycheck, or do they really want to make this thing work? And everyone there was super in.
Ricardo, you can't get more enthusiastic than Ricardo. Phil, their chief engineer, I know him back from the BMW days. He was the guy that let me do my first DC fast charge when BMW was pilot testing it back in 2011, I think. It was the first time I ever plugged in a DC fast charger. So, but they have good people there. You're right. But to that point, Kyle, other companies have good people too. We know people that work in some of the other network companies that are trying. Just being good and trying doesn't guarantee success.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tom, to your point though, we know certain people in certain groups in companies. This kind of feels like everyone. And there are some really shining stars at other companies that are friends of ours that we love to talk to, that are really great. And they lift up their organization because of their passion. But it does seem like at Ionna, everyone, everyone came from a company that probably had some issues at Ionna. And they're like, let's not do those things. Let's just do it the right way. And I think it's pretty cool. So I can't say enough good things about them. Of course, like Tom mentioned, if they mess up, we're going to be the first ones there to share it. And the reason we do that is to hopefully make them better for EV drivers. But in general, I think we finally have an EV charging service that we can be excited about. That's not Tesla coming into our market.
Well said.
I agree. So let's talk about some cars. As soon as I figure out my volume situation here, I touched I'm not that great with these earbud things. So I touched one and y'all started getting louder and louder, and I can't figure out how to stop it. Anyway, personal problems. So let's talk about some cars, Kyle. And we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to try to smush a bunch of stuff in here. On last week's show, you warned us there would be a bunch of videos coming out over the coming weeks featuring EV and EV life in China, and you've begun doing that. So I wanted to go over just some of them really quick, if that's cool with you.
Sure, it sounds good. The Zeekr Mix just went up 10 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago now.
Cool. That's my afternoon viewing. I'm all about the Zeekr Mix. I watched the fully charged review yesterday, which was pretty good, but I'm really looking forward to yours as well. I think between you and just like a fully charged review or an autogefühl review, I get all the information. Really, a really good mix of approaches and information. So and the Mix is an exciting vehicle. It's like just about everything from Zeekr, really, to me. But anyway, so let's start with what you call the best FSD system in China, and that's the Huawei Qiankun ADS 3.2, and it's installed in an Avatar 11, which is a car we don't really hear much about. So if you have anything you want to share about that car in particular, we can see it here in the background of your video.
Yes, so this is an Avatar 11. This was an old one from 2022. They've already done multiple revisions, facelifts, other things since then because China speed is crazy. And this is a joint venture or partnership between Chang'an, Huawei, and CATL maybe. And anyway, it's in the video, but it's like backed by a lot of money, this automaker. Avatars are not, I wouldn't say they're popular, but you see a few a day. And they have showrooms around, so they're out there, their car in series production, and you see a few of them around. And this one, the reason we tested this car was not so much for and if you zoom later on the video, we can get to the driver assistance part, but it wasn't so much for the car itself, but it was to test the Huawei ADS 3.2, which is their newest software on their craziest hardware package, which is multiple LiDARs, vision, radar, all, check all, like 30 something sensors. And it was incredible what the car could do. I mean, driving around parking garages on its own, as you can see here, driving through city streets, if you go later on in the video, negotiating some really crazy situations and scenarios all on its own. It was amazing. Now, we're very used to Tesla FSD here in our market, but there in China, there is competition to FSD, and Tesla does not offer FSD. So this is just a quick video, not a quick video, it's an hour-long video, but you should watch this video if you're curious how other systems handle sort of this, really almost fully automated driving experience.
There's some really interesting footage in here of this in the city where you kind of got squeezed. Like it looked like, I don't know, it looked like a dangerous situation to let the car deal with it. But how did it come through that in your mind?
Yeah, I think the car did everything perfectly through the video. I mean, it was aggressive, but not overly aggressive, but it was deliberate. It took the space as it wanted to go. It drove like a really, really great driving experience in this mode. I was really impressed.
Cool. And another thing I want to ask is this a system that any automaker can like team up with Huawei and get then? It sounds like.
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So I think we can probably leave that at that one. You also had another video this week about what it's like to own a Tesla in China. So people should check that out, because I imagine there's like a lot of differences in ownership experiences between here and China. But what would you say is like the main one?
Yeah, I think as an owner, the experiences are pretty similar, except for the fact that their autopilot system is pretty bad there and pretty amazing here in our market. So, they have a lot of work to do with autopilot in that market. But I think it was more also around the social meaning of what it means to drive a Tesla compared to the competition. Here in our market, Tesla is viewed as, to many, tech leader, best software, amazing ADAS. And in China, it's viewed more as like a Volvo or a Toyota. They're safe, they're reliable, but they're pretty basic, not so much technology. And it's really interesting to see the types of people who drive Tesla there are totally different than the types of people who drive Tesla here in the Western world.
Right. So what are you saying something about? I drive a Tesla. Are you saying something about me?
Yeah, you're very tech focused, probably. That's usually what that means.
I live online. That's something.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
But if you're into tech, you would drive, a Zeekr, or you would drive one of the avatars or something insane over in China. You wouldn't choose a Tesla. Tesla just doesn't have enough features, doesn't have enough functionality there to satisfy the real tech enthusiast.
Right.
Doesn't have a little head that talks to you.
Yeah, no me
dashboard.
in there. Yeah.
I love NEVI. I love NEVI so much. I can't wait. I love that, like in your video, they give it a little cowboy hat.
Yeah.
It's so great. All right. So you also did a full review of the Onvo L60. So this is an important car. It's the first Onvo, a brand created by NIO, and it's a straight up Tesla Model Y competitor in the Chinese market, and it seems to have like a huge price advantage. So, and it's also coming to Europe, where the prices will be likely much closer. I'm not sure if it will be at an advantage or disadvantage there actually.
They'll
So
probably price it below Model Y is the feeling I got, but I don't think it's going to be like $7,000 less like it is in China.
Right. And we're looking at you on the screen here in the back seat and driving. It looks very comfortable. And to me, it's like, looks very Tesla-like. There's this kind of plain dash, one big screen in the middle, the phone chargers right there, the armrest. It all looks very much like a Tesla with a squircle wheel, square circle wheel.
Pros and cons to both, right? I still think Tesla probably drives better than this. And maybe especially the Highland Model Y. We haven't gone in it yet, but probably drives a little bit more responsive, better throttle tuning, stuff like that. But then this has more tech in terms of head-up display and actually has working sort of FSD-like system there where Tesla doesn't in that market. Maybe in Europe, it'll be more interesting to see how they compare because I'm not sure NIO can bring that system to Europe, similar to how like FSD isn't totally available in Europe yet. Maybe basic FSD is. I don't actually know what's going on with Tesla there. Anyway, I just thought this was finally a car that was aimed to compete with the Model Y and did just that. We see so many, it's not the automakers that are calling this, but the auto media that's calling them Tesla killers that are coming. And none of them have done that. And they've all just been worse in some way or most ways. And there's always like maybe one thing better that they do, but then as an overall package just can't come close. This seems like as an overall package, it comes close and maybe even surpasses Tesla. I mean, we'd have to do a real side-by-side comparison with the new Model Y, but finally it's like, holy smokes, the formula's been there forever. Just match what Tesla can do. And here they are. And it's high voltage and it supports battery swap if you want it to. And it's got a head-up display and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of big pluses there. I think like the heads-up display is like a big one for me. Like in modern day. Plus, it's also charges faster, right? Besides this battery swapping.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't actually think it's. I mentioned in the video, it didn't sound like it was a charging monster. So they really copied Tesla on that at least. But I don't know how good or bad it is.
All right.
My understanding is Onvo's, it's still a new brand. I think they're trying to gain some market share. Certainly it's not selling in great numbers at the moment, but they also just had to ramp them up. I was just in the factory where they built this car. We have a video tour coming of that. They build it alongside other NIOs. So it's built in the NIO factory. 10 to 80% in 20 minutes sounds good. That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's still twice as long as it should take compared to the benchmark, but still pretty good. It's 10 minutes faster than Tesla or so.
So NIO also has this Firefly brand as well. Do they have any cars out under that brand yet?
No, not yet, but we will check them out on the next trip.
Okay. That's just it's kind of interesting to see NIO kind of expand its like its number of brands for one. I think it's kind of that's a Chinese move, I feel like. But we were talking briefly last night about the factory there. So you're saying if this thing catches fire, like it could maybe. I mean, it's got some big competition with the Xiaomi U7 coming up, and the SU7 for those who like the sedan. But
competition in China is plentiful. That's what's led to most of these crazy cars and features and extreme pricing competitiveness. Is there are so many options here in the US, like there aren't. You're like Ioniq 5, Mach-E, EV6, Model Y, Polestar 3, maybe Polestar 2 is kind of done. Like it's all just been the same stuff for years. And it's exciting when we get something new and then we go, well, it costs 20 grand more than a Model Y, and you got to buy it from a dealer that haggles with you, and then you got to service it for all, and it just gets so annoying. But in China, they're with the program over there in terms of what people want. So I'm really excited about this market, but it's tough as an automaker. That's I think why you see so many of them trying to get to Europe.
Right. Yeah, and you really need to. Yeah, well, they've been in a price war forever, right? For like 3 years, there's like they're not making any margins, and these are mostly startups, so they're not. It's not like they're profitable companies either. So there's room for shakeups, and some some companies have kind of fallen by the wayside, or some brands have been kind of discontinued. And, there's a lot of. It's a very dynamic market still.
They have huge capacity and a supply surplus. So they need Europe. They need to send the factories have to keep working, so they need to get into Europe.
But a lot of comments on the Xiaomi U7. That's going to be cool because the SU7 is amazing. So can't wait for the U7.
It's been out for a year and they've sold 150,000 of them in the first year. That includes the ramp up.
Yeah,
it's like those are crazy numbers.
It's an amazing car.
Yeah. That's the one that. Jim Farley, from CEO of Ford, had on loan for a while that he was raving about. So, if you're CEO of a car company and you're raving about somebody else's car, it's probably pretty decent,
Oh yeah, I drove that car in California for a bit. Took it to like Starbucks, drove it around. It was just amazing. Yeah,
man. That's good. Okay. So, what's your time? Okay, you also had a video about the. EV. So yeah, if you haven't watched that L60 Onvo L60 video on the Out of Spec reviews channel, I really highly recommend you checking that out. It's like an hour long, probably, or almost. Maybe that's a shorter one.
I think it was a shorter one, and it didn't get that many views. I mean, comparatively to others, but that's okay. It did. Oh, it did okay. It did 62,000 views.
Yeah. But I think it deserves more because it's an incredible car. Like your Tesla Model Y refresh video got a ton. The timing of it was great and everything. And this has been out for a while, the L60, so people interested in have had a chance to see other reviews. But yours are better, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but in terms of Western videos, I think it was only maybe Wheels Boy, Inside China Auto, Thomas from Auto Gefühl was like the one outside of China who's checked it out, and then us. So it's not like a well-known car, and that's always the risk, of course, from us with a primarily Western audience going to China is like, who's going to be interested in these cars because you don't see them on the road every day. I am personally interested to try and like force everyone else to like see what's happening, but you do risk the views. But in general, I've been just thrilled with the response of viewership from our China trip so far. It's been amazing.
That's great. So that all leads up into this video here you have of the NIO ET9. Wasn't even going to really talk about this too much today, but you were really impressed by this. We were talking last night. So what is it that makes this car so special and worth talking about?
Yeah, so we just talked about the Onvo brand, which is sort of NIO's cheaper brand, and this is all the way on the other end of the spectrum. This is their super luxury brand, and it's called the ET9, and it is a third generation NIO platform, which is really exciting because, to be honest, NIOs are kind of getting old and they've been the same for a while. And in a market that rapidly innovates and comes up with new features, they just haven't. And so here, finally, we're able to see that next generation car. And I just think they have leapfrogged so many others, at least in terms of what they were aiming for. It's a fully vertically integrated vehicle, which means they build, of course, their own chassis, everything like that they've always done, but now they're their own chips. They're not even taking supplier chips. So all of the software and electrical architecture and hardware, it's all done in the vehicle. Very similar to Rivian, that zonal architecture approach. The suspension is really crazy. I'm pretty sure that's a supplier done part, but 10 times faster response than Porsche Active Ride. The whole car can move around. And it's the car that Herbert Diess was at the launch for, where they put the champagne glasses on the hood and it stayed completely flat. Now that's very similar to like the Bose suspension LS400 20, 30 years ago or whatever, which is really cool. But now we're finally starting to get some of this amazing tech in cars all these years later. And, for the first time, I think that's a sign that the Chinese automakers are caring how their cars drive. They've always been impressive from a technology software interface perspective. And this has like a 3,000 watt sound system with I don't even remember how many speakers, and has a refrigerator. I missed that in the video. Sorry, everyone. We actually found it, and I thought we put it in the video, but the clip never made it in. Us correcting that it didn't have a fridge. It does have a fridge. But
you gotta have a fridge, man. You gotta have a fridge in your EV in China.
Every Chinese car has a fridge, basically. Or
the Mix has one, right?
Yeah, pretty much everything, even down to like $20,000 cars have fridges.
Really?
So
okay, I was kind of joking, but
no, everything has a fridge, and they're hot boxes and cold boxes. So like you can warm up your whatever. The problem with the Mix was someone left some old sushi in there, and it just smelled terrible when we opened it up. I was like, damn, that's nasty. Close that back up. I think it made it in the video. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, we don't have cold boxes. We have hot boxes sometimes, but that's a whole other thing. But
that's a different topic. So anyway, the ET9, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's really so much car for the money. Really focused on steer by wire. Driving dynamics. First time we're really seeing that from a Chinese automaker, and I'm excited about it.
I just froze it right here because I just thought this is a really cool thing. Like, so we've been used to glass roofs. I mean, Tesla really popularized the glass roof in cars, and they've traditionally had like one kind of center beam going across. Well, NIO's got a center beam, but it's going back to front, and I just really like the effect of it. At least in the video, I'm not sure how it was in real life, but I just like the way it looks, and I don't know, it feels like it just changes up the kind of interior a bit.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I had no issues with it. I think I still would have preferred like a normal glass roof, but that's my opinion.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. So you also reviewed a car this week that our American viewers can now buy. And that's the new Jeep Wagoneer, the first fully electric vehicle for that brand. So according to the title of your video, you were hugely impressed by it, but not necessarily maybe in a good way. So,
we called it impressively bad in terms of driving, which I always, to be honest, I hate dunking on cars. This is not my fun day at work. It's shocking to me that some cars make it to market like this. And this is now the second product in a row from Stellantis that is a shock as to how not great it is. That doesn't mean everything about the car is bad, though. So let me start on some of the highlights.
You had some good points here.
First of all, the Wagoneer name makes no sense on this. This is not a Wagoneer-sized vehicle. This is like it's bigger than a Compass, but it's not huge. It's a Model Y-sized car. And it's priced in between like a fully spec'd Lyric Model X type money. This thing was $75,000, $73,900, I think, as tested, something like that. So it's a lot of money. But this, keep in mind, is a fully loaded first edition. They've already announced cheaper trims, but still not that much cheaper. So it's way too expensive. There's some good here. So the interior is amazing. And the interior, I thought, was nice materials, looked visually pleasing. I don't like the red or the black interior. I wish they offered like a light gray or a brighter color interior, but it still was nice materials. And I thought the shape of the car was fine. The design was fine. And I was going into this review as like, it's less offensive than the Dodge Charger EV because that comes with all of the heritage of muscle car, V8s, tire smoking, excitement. This is just an SUV, and electric SUVs, okay, they're everywhere. So that this makes sense to me. But even with all that said, we found a few things wrong with it, such as the software was really, really a poor execution of getting that done. Was really disappointing, as well as the driving character of the vehicle, the powertrain tuning in terms of their one pedal drive, in terms of their motor cog control, in terms of the smoothness of the drive line, the lashing effect that we got was like worse than prototype levels. And I just, for the life of me, can't understand how someone signed off on this and let this go out into the public. That's not to say it can't be fixed, because most of our problems with this vehicle were not with the hardware. It was with the tuning, the software, and the final calibration that was set on the vehicle. it does support over-the-air upgrades and updates.
Right.
And I really hope Stellantis watches this video and isn't like, oh man, this guy keeps dunking on us. He just hates Stellantis. I don't really like what they're doing here, but that doesn't mean that I'm just saying that because you don't
hate the brand or something. It's not like some personal vendetta.
No, zero. Of course, zero of that. And I'm a Hellcat guy. Like, give me a supercharged V8 all day long. Like, I like many of their products. And I just wish that I hope they watch this video and go, wow, okay, we've really got a problem and we really need to fix it. And they will update the cars. And then we'll re-review it.
Yeah. So you do think it's redeemable enough to find an audience, basically?
No, not at the moment.
I mean, if they fix some of the software issues, I mean, you can't fix like putting the same size motor on the front and the back and not calibrating them. So
there's fundamental hardware decisions that are questionable with this driveline setup. The charging doesn't seem bad. I'll give them that. It's like 26 minutes, 10 to 80 is what it sounds like. That's not terrible. It's not great.
Right. It's a big battery, right?
As it should take, but it's still pretty okay. And it's a big battery. It's a 100 kilowatt hour pack and it's 400 volts. So it must have a pretty beefy charging curve, but there's no preconditioning. There's no route planning, nothing like that. And so, are you going to be able to achieve that charge rate in, it's Colorado winter, half the year here. It's too cold. You need preconditioning. And so, yeah, I thought that was a real shame. So it's not worth spending too much time on this. I think it's going to be like a great rental car. If you happen to get one as a rental, as long as you're okay doing your own route planning. I really thought that it was terrible software response. Like they definitely just spec'd the cheapest possible chips on this that they could. And there's a lot of work for them to do. Yeah,
it's not cool to take those shortcuts. I think that's kind of important especially for, feels pretty premium, right? Should be a premium experience.
Well, it's priced that way. It's priced against Lyric, which Lyric is a pretty cool car with pretty good software, with nice route planning and I would say even a better design, but that's subjective. But I would choose a Lyric over this, even though this charges better than the Lyric. The other thing we should mention is other reviewers noted pretty good efficiency with this car. Okay. And I don't mean like great. We're not talking lucid gravity efficiency, and that's a much larger vehicle, but over 3 miles per kilowatt hour in their sunny California, San Diego loop where most people went. I went to just my local dealership here in Colorado and checked it out. And that's where I was able to see it.
So some of that efficiency, I just want to touch on this really quick before we move on. Also, they have this week they have a new edition out that's a little bit lower price. So it starts at $66,995. That's including the destination, $1,795 a destination. So really quickly on efficiency, you mentioned this week that in your video that it disengages the front motors differently than other brands do, which could lead to better efficiency in that one aspect, or not?
Yeah, in a sense, but I'm not 100% sure if what they're writing is accurate. So they claim they do hub disconnects, which is totally possible, which would then stop everything from spinning upstream, including the differential and up from there. The way most do it is they disconnect sort of on the motor output shaft through a dog clutch, and the differential still spins. Yeah, I mean, it's still complicated, and their tuning was terrible for this. Like the reconnect strategy took a long time. It really felt like when you floor it, it's got to downshift 1 or 2 gears before it gives you full power.
All right. Okay, well, let's leave that aside, and we wanted to go back to you, Tom. You had a video up this week that I wanted to talk about. Let's see. It's the review of the Grizzly Cyber Ultimate 80 amp EV charger from our sponsor, United Chargers. So this one is a big deal because not only is it like a big boy amp or a big boy 80 amp box, but it's like the most affordable one, I believe you say, out there right now. So
super solid unit. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you put it through your famous state of charge battery of tests. How did it do?
Oh, it did really well. Super solid unit. 80 amp chargers are expensive. There's just, this is literally half the price of most other units out there. You just can't get 80 amp units under $1,000. And this right now, you can get a ridiculous deal just through the end of February. If you get this product here with the NACS connector, only NACS only, it's $559. That's what it costs for like some 40 and 48 amp units cost $550. And you're not sacrificing anything. It comes with a smartphone app. It has the ability for you to direct the charger to other apps. We talk about this with the OCPP compliance and how most of the other units on the market, you have to use the native app. You can't direct the charger to another app. United Chargers lets you use other apps. So if one day United Chargers went out of business, you wouldn't have a brick of a charger like what happened to the NL customers with JuiceBox. You could just direct that unit to another app and go away. So it has that. It's a solid, really well made unit, great features, and you just can't beat the price. So it's United Chargers does a good job up there. They work with very tight margins. That's why their charging equipment is so competitively priced. They are our sponsor, but I wouldn't say something good about something that I didn't believe was good. I like this unit. I used it for a few weeks. I charged a whole bunch of electric vehicles. Everything works great with it. The push button on the NACS connector will open Tesla charge ports. I forgot to put that in my video. I pulled a Kyle. I actually recorded me doing that to put it in the video, and then somehow that clip never ended up in the video. When you're shooting all these millions of clips, it's amazing that we actually end up getting most of the stuff in the videos, right, Kyle? But I forgot to put that in. So yeah, it works. And I worked out with United Chargers to get one for free. I'm going to be giving one away on March 1st. If you want one of these, you just have to follow my me on Twitter, but not me personally. I have another Twitter account. It's at EV Charging Stations, and that's because it's a website that I have that I'm posting all my charging reviews there. Just follow that channel and tell me in the comment section why you need this. And I'm going to be giving one away on the 1st of March, and I'll be giving away a different charger every month of 2025.
Oh, every month.
Every month, one a month. So some from United Chargers, some from Emporia, some from some other companies that we'll be talking about soon. But yeah, the goal is one a month through the rest of the year.
Cool, that's awesome. Am I eligible for that? No, never mind.
Friends and family are not eligible. It's in the fine print on at the bottom.
Okay. So I pulled up the Grizzly website just with the price on it. So it's $559 US funds. And we've talked about that. Is that a temporary price? Is that going up?
Yeah, just through February. It's okay. The unit is $749, which is still very inexpensive. The next least expensive 80 amp unit is like $1,200 or something like that. So, and I even in this review listed a bunch of 80 amp units and showed their prices. You just can't get, an 80 amp electric vehicle charger for that price. It's just that they don't exist. This is the only one that's there. And the fact that he's discounting it by almost $200, $190 just for the first month, just to kind of get these out in the market and make a big splash. I think that, that's a super deal. Like I said, if you're thinking about getting a high powered unit, just buy one now and just leave it in your garage in a box, because you're never going to see a price like this again.
25-foot cable. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's the longest that's allowed by code. 25 feet.
Okay.
Anything with a longer cable doesn't comply with code.
Yeah, I mean, it'd have to be extra thick if you go much longer. Much longer than that anyway, right?
Well, yeah, the longer it goes. I mean, if you made one 28 feet, you probably wouldn't have to have thicker cable, but it just wouldn't be compliant with the code. So we put it through all our tests. I talked about how to install it, how to set the amperage at different levels. You can derate it. Like a lot of people say, well, I don't have a 100 amp circuit in my house. I'm not going to buy an 80 amp unit, but you can derate it from 80 amps to 64 amps to 56 amps, 48 amps, 40, all the way down to 16 amps if you want, and then you'll have it in the future if you did upgrade your circuit and your home electrical service.
All right.
What would be really good if it could do, but it can't, is intelligently manage power. I'm going to be doing a video on that soon. There's a few units out there that you can buy additional equipment, and it allows the unit to deliver more power than what you should be able to deliver according to your service, because you'd be overdrawing. But the smart units now allow you to manage your power, so you could have a 48 amp unit, for instance, if you do a load calculation and your house only has 16 amps to spare, because it will make sure it manages the power and only gives the 48 amps when your house is at low capacity. So I'm going to be doing a video explaining how that all works soon, and talk about a couple good options on the market. But I'm still doing more research. When I get that video out, I want to really understand how they all work. So I'm still topping off some of my knowledge on the units before I publish that video.
Right on. Well, I see you have an interesting little chart in this one: EV charging circuits and miles of range per hour added. That's handy.
Yeah,
new?
And they're all estimates. Well, I've had charts like this in my previous videos, not every video, but just to kind of give people an idea of, with the different levels and with what circuit you have available in your house, how many miles, what's the spread of miles of range per hour you'd be adding to your vehicle. It's a wide spread, because what am I charging? A Denali truck or a Model 3, one that gets 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour, and one that gets 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour. So you can't put a number on it and say, oh, this charger will give you 50 miles an hour. You have to offer a spread. And I talk about that and explain to people, because I still get a lot of questions from people that say, well, Tom, if I buy this charger, how many miles per hour will it charge? And Teslas famously have that listed in their cars. When you plug in, it tells you how many miles per hour it's charging at. But that confuses people sometimes, because a lot of people then get into their pickup truck, their electric truck, whatever, and then they're like, well, how come this same charger it charges at 40 miles per hour, but now this car will only charge at 18 miles per hour? Like, it's not giving me all the power. So I try to explain, it's giving you the same amount of power, but it's what the car does with it that decides how fast it charges. And a lot of people still just don't get that, don't grasp that. They think this should, if it delivers 40 miles of range per hour to their Tesla, it should deliver 40 miles of range per hour to this next vehicle, but it's not how it works. Right.
So, like all your videos, all your charger review videos, you have your charger rater chart at the very end, and so it looks like it has a score of like 96. How does that compare with competition?
Very good. It's at the top, at the top 5 or 6. But the one thing I have to note, I'm constantly updating the charger rater, and that's because this market is constantly evolving. There are features that were just not available a year or two ago. There are things to discuss that weren't available a year or two ago. There are the charging equipment that I reviewed 4 years ago is junk compared to what we're getting today. So I've had to update. There were some features that back 2-3 years ago almost nobody had, but now it comes standard on every charger. So I've had to remove that out of the rating system, because if every unit has one feature, why would I give them points for it? So it's been a moving target. So I think I'm pretty close to being where I need to be now. And now what I have to do is go back and re-review, not really re-review, but put out new charger raters for rescore all the previous reviews I've done. And those are going to go on my website, evchargingstations.com, so people can have a fair comparison, because it's not fair to compare this 96 score with a 96 score I gave a charger 2 years ago, because there's different, I've had to change things. So, but, and it's good because honestly, and it's what I love, you hear a lot of companies talk about, say, Kyle's videos have helped us, with X, Y, and Z. He's pointed out things, or charging infrastructure companies, when he did that cold weather thing back, when the chargers froze, he forced the companies to address this, Electrify America, to get on this topic and fix the problem. I'm kind of that way with home charging equipment. I can't tell you how many companies, when they give me their unit to review, they're like, oh, and just so you know, we did this, and this, so you would score it well. And so I will, take some credit for charging equipment getting better over the last few years, and for these units to actually have features that they didn't offer 2 or 3 years ago, because I told the companies, like in my reviews, this should have this feature, and now all of a sudden they've elevated them and made the charging equipment better. And that's one of the things I'm probably most proud about my reviews, is that I think I've made a tangible effect on the industry with the home charging equipment.
Yep, I think so too. All right. So I think that's about a show. I don't know. Anything you want to say, Kyle, before we go? It looks like you're one.
We're probably out of time, but we really should have talked about this $250,000 Model S we did some videos on, but we can talk about it next week.
Oh, I didn't see that one. Was that up?
I talked to you about it on the phone yesterday.
Okay. Is it on the channel?
Yes, it went up on the podcast channel this morning, but we have our testing videos that I think started to roll, and then a reviews video at some point, but we can talk about it ahead of when it gets posted on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah. Remind me. Oh, also there was that Faraday Future. If anyone's interested in a Faraday Future FF91, go to bringatrailer.com. I think it's probably the only way you can get a Faraday Future. But don't buy it unless you have like a ton of money to throw away, because we don't know. We don't know. It could turn into like a brick, and we don't know a whole lot. I mean, the company is great. They produced a lot of videos recently. I forget about Faraday Future, because they don't really produce anything, or they haven't. They have a handful of cars. They have a factory though. They have put up a video showing their factory and people working and cars kind of being made. I don't know if it's the same. I don't know. They already produced like half a dozen cars, maybe. I don't even know. But
we
anyway.
can also mention that yesterday was the canoe auction for all their stuff. Yeah, so a lot of clay models and other stuff got auctioned off. Yeah.
Shame. Have you ever driven in a Faraday?
No, I sat in one.
Oh, I drove in one for about 15 minutes.
Okay. Oh yeah, you did the driving to yourself, or?
No, I didn't drive. I drove in it. I was in the passenger seat, driving around Vegas. It was I was either CES or one of the trade shows, one of the auto shows. No, it was Vegas. It had to be CES. Yeah. So one of the CESs maybe like 5-6 years ago.
So you've both seen the thing in person. I haven't, but to me, it's always looked like kind of really weird and ungainly. Like, how is it in person?
Yep, just like that.
Yeah, but ultra. It really reminded me more of anything of a Chinese luxury saloon. Like a
Hongqi.
Right, from 6 years ago, not today's Chinese cars. Everything was kind of exaggerated. And ultra luxury. The seats were, I think they called them zero gravity seats, where they fully reclined. It was like a bed. It was. Everything was just to excess, but.
And now the zero gravity seats are in like every Chinese car. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. You can get them in like a $25,000 Xpeng now.
Yeah. Yeah. I reclined it. I still felt gravity. So I'm not sure that concept works.
They don't work. It's the most, whenever I sit in a zero gravity seat and try it, it's the most awkward seating position that you could possibly be in.
Right. Yeah, I haven't had any good luck, zero gravity luck it myself either. But anyway. So I guess that brings us to the end of our show.
Yeah. I just have a video that went live too. If anybody is not going back to work, you can head over to State of Charge. I think it just posted 10 minutes ago. So Cybertruck Supercharging.
Okay.
I compared the V3 to the V3.5 stations to see if it actually will charge faster on a V3.5. And short answer is no.
Well, it does at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does, but for a very short period of time, and it makes almost no difference. The 10 to 80 was a minute and 11 seconds faster.
Yes.
So thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below in the comments. You can get in touch with us on the social media platform of your choice. We're everywhere. Click subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications. And thank you all very much for joining us. And we'll see you again very soon. Ciao. Ciao.